hear what Mike Brown, the emergency manager for the city of Flint, has to say about kind of the direction, maybe where we're at, and the direction that he sees us going over the next several months. Just a couple of thank yous I want to get out of the way to begin with, and then we'll bring Mike up here to kind of give some background information, and then we'll get to the questions. I want to thank Eastwood United Methodist Church for hosting tonight. They've always been a great partner in the neighborhood, from their work with Potter School to community gardens, to hosting events like they're doing tonight. So they've been, like I said, great neighbors and great partners for the city. I appreciate that. And then also the Potter Longway Neighborhood Association, we kind of took over their meeting night. They typically meet here on the third Monday of every month at 7 o'clock. And if you live in the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood, I'd urge you guys to attend a meeting and kind of get involved in what's going on in the community here, where we live, because as we move forward, it's going to be more and more important to be not just residents, but neighbors too. I think most of you know me. I'm Josh Freeman. I represent this ward on the City Council. We've got about 90 minutes worth of Mr. Brown's time tonight. And I guess, instead of taking up any more time, Mike, if you want to come on up and do your thing? All right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here tonight, and I also want to echo to thank Eastwood United Methodist Church and certainly the Potter Longway Neighborhood Association. Also want to thank Josh Freeman for his leadership and cooperation since I've been at the city in December. And if anything I've got from Josh, it's "you're going too slow, Brown." So, we'll see. But tonight really is what I want to be a good give and take and exchange. This is our 5th ward forum. Some of them have been a little more volatile than others. I don't know how this is going to be tonight, but I do want to encourage you to ask questions, and I'll answer those the best I can. I do have members of my staff here that if I need help, if it's a police question or if it's a question on assessments, I've got folks here that can help answer those questions, so I'll call on them if need be. I'm going to say a few words, though, about what we've done since we've been here and really the problems that we're facing. You hear numbers thrown out all the time, but our deficit for fiscal 11 and 12 is, we project by June 30 this year to be about $12 million in the general fund. And that doesn't include things like what they call OPEB cost, that's post-employment benefits. If you add those in, those numbers shoot up considerably. But we're trying to focus on that immediate deficit in 11 and 12, and then putting together a budget for fiscal 13 that has realistic revenue projections, and then putting our expenses in place so that we can live within those revenues. And that means that for services to folks throughout the community, those services are going to be impacted. It means that, and you're seeing that a lot now. I mean, obviously, whether it's public safety or infrastructure, and just the whole back office operation of the city with finances and human resources, you're seeing that those kinds of services impact you as a citizen. So, we know we have to get a handle on that if we're going to move forward as a community. We're going to do the best job we can while I'm there to plan well and then to implement well. And that means using the best judgment that we can, gathering the best people to do the job that we can, and then making the tough decisions. And that is going to mean fundamental change. That's going to mean that we change the way we do business, and that's what's going to help us live within the budget that we have. Talk a little bit about what I was charged to do when I first came in. Within the first 45 days, we had to put together an operational plan that was submitted to the state treasurer. We submitted that plan on January 15th. That came in on December 1st. So January 15th, we submitted that plan, and we focused on three things. We focused on the finances, we focused on infrastructure, and we focused on public safety. We felt that those were the three top priorities going forward, that if we didn't get a handle on those things, then we were not going to go anywhere. The next thing we have to do is to submit what's called a deficit elimination plan. So you heard me talk about that. It's $12 million from 11 and 12. So we have to have a plan as to how we're going to pay off that deficit so that we can go forward in fiscal 2013. And that's due, right now it's due February 27th. I'm going to ask for a little bit of time on that, because I think what we want to try to do is tie it to our fiscal 13 budget and submit that as a package to the state. But that deficit elimination plan is something, again, that they have to approve. A third thing that we had to have in by December 31st was what's called EVIP. It's Economic Vitality Improvement Program. And in the past, municipalities used to get what's called state shared revenue. And there was a significant amount of state shared revenue that came into communities, and a lot of it was used for police and fire. So as that has diminished, as our property tax has diminished, as our income tax has diminished, we've had a tougher time putting police officers and firefighters on the street. And again, you know that we've had to lay off a considerable number of police and fire, and that has impacted the public safety in the community. I already talked about the budget plan. Another huge issue is union contracts, labor contracts, and we are reviewing those contracts right now. We're going to be prepared to sit down with union leadership to meet and confer with them. That's, again, the language in the statute. So we will do that meeting and conferring, but we fully expect that that is a place where major change has to take place, because 80% of the city budget is personnel, okay? And so if we're really going to impact cost of government, we're going to have to take a look at those union contracts. And another major issue, again, I'm not telling you anything, I think, as citizens, but public safety in the community. We've got, I've heard on every meeting, scrap problems, people stealing. We've got a murder rate that's much too high. We've got breaking and entering, and police response time is slow. So we've got major problems on public safety. And then we have, beyond the city, we have an overcrowded county jail. We have about 47,000 outstanding warrants in Genesee County. So we have a system that's not moving people through in the proper way. And one of the things, the state has asked us to do, especially because they're supplying support from the state police, but is to look at the reopening of the city lockup. And one of the things we know is if we don't have a plan in place, that lockup, if we open it, will be overcrowded, and we will not have solved any problems at all. So, and you've heard me talk about a lot of plans, but I think, again, you have to do this in a methodical fashion if we're going to get the results that we want. So, and these are things that, of course, the state is really mandating that we do. And then a final piece of puzzle that's major, I think, is this issue of water, and the Carrick-Nandi Water Project, or Detroit, or Flint River. We don't know the right answer right now, but we're doing a lot of research and investigation, so again, that we can make the best decision. And as I talked to staff today, I think one of the things we've decided, because this is such an issue of major concern in the community, is that we will have a public hearing, a broader town hall meeting, if you will, just on this water issue, because it's the first time I've ever gotten a clap up Chris. Maybe I'm doing something right here, I don't know. But, you know, the fact is we're listening. We know that's a major decision, and we don't know the best answer right now, but we are doing our homework. We're going to try to make the right decision there, and I think to share those facts with the people and then get feedback is important. And really that's why we're out here doing these board meetings. Like I said, some of these have been more volatile than others, but I think it's critical, you know, to be out into the community, not just sit in City Hall. I think to be out on your turf is important, and to listen to you and then to try to respond in an appropriate manner. So that's kind of the plan piece. Let me talk a little bit about the actions that we've taken. Eliminated a couple of departments the first week I was there, the Ombudsman's Office and the Civil Service, and with eliminating some other positions. Granted, I had to put a team in place of my own who have a net savings that we can document, for Josh's sake, a little over $600,000. And then we have found ways to increase revenue too. There were some contracts out there that we hadn't signed that had a substantial amount of revenue in it that was owed to us, about $500,000 in one case, and then when we project that out, it's about $100,000 a month to the end of the fiscal year. I think it's about 1.1 million. So just in that alone, some revenue in and some savings and expenses. Again, nowhere near where we need to be when you're talking about a $12 million deficit, but you got to start somewhere. So we have taken those actions. The other thing we're doing is pursuing grant sources where we can. We had a Department of Energy grant that we had to send back, and we were able to, Pete Bay, the city attorney, did a tremendous job in talking to DOE, setting new terms for that. We were able to get that $880,000 grant back into the city, and that'll help us with energy savings in terms of retrofitting our building. And then another one that we are submitting, it's a resubmission really to the Mount Foundation for community policing. That represents about 10 officers though, and has a lot to do with our community policing program and neighborhood safety. And then a third one is the SAFER grant, which is firefighters. The city had secured one in the past, so there's a new round of SAFER grants out there. So we are, as we speak, preparing that grant. And then water and sewer grant to the state, we were able to secure, and I don't remember the numbers on that. Tom or Howard, you might, but anyway, that's another one. And then that also sets us up for, not that we want to do this all the time, but to borrow dollars at a low cost where for both water and sewer, and they have a state program where they'll forgive 50% of the principal. You still got to have the cash available though to pay all those dollars back. So those are the kinds of things we're struggling with. But we know we've got 100-year-old infrastructure. We've got 30% loss in water that's coming into this community that we have to account for. And so we've got major repairs in both water and sewer. We're on the east side now, but like southwest side of the city and northwest side, there's been major sewer problems. We've had lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit that we've had to pay off on. So somehow we got to figure out ways to address those major infrastructure issues. The other thing is kind of identifying areas, especially around healthcare, where we can cut costs. So we sent a letter out in early February to retirees that will generate a change in their healthcare, more use of generics and that kind of thing. But we estimate that'll save us conservatively $1 million a year just with that one change in healthcare. And of course, those are the kinds of things we need to look at across the board. And then, as you know, we had closed a couple of golf courses, so we have been sitting down with folks to look at a process where some outside group or private group might take over the golf course management. and we're real close to having those secured. We don't have them yet. I think it was announced on Channel 12 that we did, but we don't. But we are in good, good quality negotiations there, and that could mean at least 3 of those courses open under nonprofit or private management, and then with Swartz Creek, we're still, there's a lot of union issues around that one, so we're kind of evaluating how to move forward. That's not decided yet. And then another major area of concern that I've heard is senior centers. We have a millage to pay for senior centers. Frankly, we have not managed that very well, and the folks who have suffered from that are senior citizens who are not getting the right kind of services in those centers. So we are looking at our options there, how we can, again, work with the nonprofit community, possibly contract with somebody to provide the service that also has some resources of their own, so we can improve services to seniors that way. See, I mentioned the lockup, I mentioned EVIP, mentioned Karagandhi. The other piece in terms of how we deal with the 11 and 12 deficit is, we borrowed $8 million last year. They're called fiscal stabilization bonds. And frankly, we believe that we're going to need to borrow more if we're going to kind of find our way through and out of this. So that's another piece of, if you looked at the operational plan that I submitted to the state on January 15th, it talks about those fiscal stabilization bonds, and I think that's got to be part of the solution, especially for what's in the past. Again, going forward, we're hoping we can put together a fiscal 13 budget that we can live within those revenues. With that, I think I'm going to stop and open this up for questions, and we'll move forward. I guess Josh will come up and do that. Let me just do one thing before I start, Josh.
You're fine.
But if the staff that I have here, and if there's any volunteers that participated in our advisory groups, if you just stand and be recognized, that would be good. And I want to pay just a special note of thanks to Dawn Jones, who has really worked hard to put these ward forums on with City Council, and she's done a tremendous job, and I think she deserves it.
All right, they've got a couple rules moving forward through the question and answer. First thing, and I've been to all of these but one, let's try to be civil. We can disagree, but you don't need to stand up here and scream at the manager, no matter how much you disagree or agree with him for that matter. Can we make the questions to the point, not ramble on and on and on? We've got, a decent-sized group here, and we ran out of time at a couple of the other forums, and that left people hanging and not able to get the questions answered. One question at a time, please. If you've got more than one question, after you've asked your questions, if you just get back at the end of the line and then ask your question again. And like I say, we're on a time schedule here. He's out at 7:30, so that gives us an hour and 10 minutes. If we can line up behind this microphone over here, and we can start your questions from Mr. Brown.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Paul.
Paul Herring. At Haskell, you mentioned, or it was brought up, that the water rates had been risen 3 times here in the city of Flint to make up for shortages that hadn't been passed along to the Flint residents. And it was also brought up that that same increase hadn't been given to the township. And I'm trying to understand the justification for that.
And again, this is a complicated issue, but the way I understand it is the county is responsible for passing those costs on, and they have done it. See, in those 5 years when Mayor Williamson was here and we got increases from Detroit, we didn't pass those increases on. The county did pass them on. So we're making up now for major double-digit increases over those years. That's the best way I can answer it.
Mine is just pointing out something to you that I ran into at the inspections department the other day. They told me I had to buy, I have rental properties in the city of Flint, and they told me I had to buy a license for one of my rental properties, or an inspection. And I had a receipt for where I had purchased an inspection on 2/18 of 10, right here, and they're supposed to be good for 3 years. They made me pay another $100 and buy another one. And I asked Mike Ritter about it, I think his last name's Ritter, the inspector, and he told me I'm lucky that he didn't hit me with a $300 late fee.
Okay, well, here's what I'll tell you, is Howard Croft is here in the back, and he will deal with you. I also own a rental house in this community, and I just renewed mine after 3 years, and it was 3 years, so I don't know why they made you do it in 2, but we'll find out if you talk to Howard. Try to get you an answer, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, well, it was already brought up, but in regards to water, okay, I just got my bill right here, and like the service charges is, I guess, what they added on to for this catch-up fee, because for this past month, my sewer and water fee combined was $9.99, and my bill is $51.42, so I'm getting like $41 in service charges. If all that is for catching up on arrears, how come that hasn't been put in the actual charge for the water?
Good point. And on the service charge, I'm not gonna be able to answer that right now, but I don't know. Howard, can you help me out there? He's outside now. Can we hold on that one and then when he comes back in?
Another one too, okay. I understand that the city is hurting for money. I understand that, and I'm
Is this a different question from the water?
Yes.
Can we, let's do one at a time, and then we can get through, and then that way, if we've got extra time, we can go to another.
Yes, I wonder, these houses are supposed to be torn down. Now, we've got a house on, just off Avon, Delaware, that they took the siding off, and it's, all the rest of our homes are nice down to there, but that one home. Well, see, that throws our valuation off. And I was wondering why we can't move on it. It's already condemned, they're supposed to take it down in summer, but it's still standing. Kids run in and out of there, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so maybe it could be a little bit, work a little bit better on that.
Yeah, what I can tell you is there's just limited resources for those demolitions, and we have actually run out of dollars now. We're pursuing some other resources out there. But that's a challenge because there are so many homes that need to come down. And I know, particularly in a neighborhood like you described, it can bring the values down. Of course, that's not good for anybody. That's not good for the neighbors. It's not good for the city because it means that our revenues from property go down. So I know it's an issue, but what I can tell you is that we're going to pursue opportunities to bring more revenues in, but I can't promise you that that particular house will come down.
I was just like the other, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, I come down Franklin, all right? All of the business places, the windows were all up. Now they took all the steel around and sold the steel, see? And it's terrible the way that they're stealing here in Flint. It's terrible.
Well, and you're mentioning the scrap issue. That's one that, again, has come up at every forum. There are some business folks on the east side who actually have a plan on scrap, and I know Chief Locke is arresting people daily that have scrap, illegal scrap that they're selling. So this is one really that, I don't want to say it's a small issue at all, but it's one that we need to address as a total community because a lot of that scrap's being taken outside the city to be sold too. So we need to figure out better ways to get at it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Approximately 8 or 10 years ago, the city council approved a grant to a supposed entrepreneur to rehab the old OK Plumbing on North Saginaw. As I understand it, he received the $1.25 million in full. The former mayor Williamson was going to attempt to sue the council people to recover some of that money. I just wondered, has anybody attempted to recoup any of that money, or is that just water over the dam?
That's
Back out of Black Ranch. Yeah, we're paying that back every year out of our yearly allocation for Black Grant dollars, so there hasn't been, we've not recouped it from anybody.
Yeah, just another question on the water. We're paying more for water here than they're paying in Phoenix. So don't give me this double-digit increase. Where's the money going?
Well, sir, we're gonna find that out. I think one of the things we wanna do, I mentioned this at another forum, is to have an audit of the water services. Because I don't know all those answers, but I do know we need to ask the right questions to get them. But definitely, you know that we get our water from Detroit right now. And I'm not, this isn't to point fingers at Detroit, but that's, you know, when we changed 1960, we used Flint River water. Before that, we went to Detroit. We had a population of around 200,000. General Motors was growing, and in order to get the kind of volume we needed to hook up with Detroit to get that water, and we've done that ever since. And as their costs have gone up, they have passed those costs on to us. I'm not saying that's all of it. I mean, we have that 30% loss of water that we've got to figure out why. You know, what's that? Is that all due to leakage? We just don't know all those answers, but I do think we need an audit in that area. And again, right now, we don't even have the money to pay for an audit like that because those are expensive, but we're gonna seek grant dollars to do some of these audits in different departments, and water is one of them.
Good evening. I was wondering, Mike Brown, what's your annual salary?
$170,000.
Okay, and where do you live?
East Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, you're a white guy. Okay, so I'll get to it.
Okay.
I was wondering why it is that you, a wealthy white guy from East Lansing, is representing and controlling the municipal operations of a majority black and impoverished city known as Flint.
It's the governor's decision.
Who is also a wealthy white man. Okay.
Cronyism.
Wealthy people?
No, I just think that
Why don't you
a poor
work
person.
a little? You might be wealthy too.
Hello. I'm actually an aspiring social worker at U of M Flint, and for one of my projects I have to come around and I have to go through different wards. Now coming to this meeting this evening for Ward 4, you have all these different meetings for all these wards, but I haven't heard you say any specific goals for different wards. I mean, we have, if you go into this ward particularly, we have a lot of rundown houses and things in that part of the community. If you go to a different ward, we have things on, you know, with work and businesses that are run down, but I haven't heard any goals for that. I heard just general broad goals.
Yeah, let me say one of the things that we're doing that we did receive a HUD grant for. We haven't updated our master plan in 40 plus years, and so that was a $1.5 million grant that actually Mayor Walling and the City Council secured. And within that planning process, there will be looks at each ward. And again, I mean, there's so much we've been able to do in 12 weeks. So I'm not saying I can get a handle on everything, but what I am saying is the city was doing some things right. And I think one of those was to update our master plan. And so I think in that process, it will ask for community involvement from each ward. And certainly there are things in each ward, as you point out, that are different and that we need to address. So that's the best way I can answer that. I think it's through the master planning
You're
process.
planning on doing.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
I have another question, but prior to the question, I'd like to say, I plead guilty to being white, but I don't care if you're purple, I just want the city fixed. Anyway, my taxes, my home, the valuation was lowered, okay? I tried fighting this with the city for 3 years. Finally went to the state tribunal, okay? I lost at the state tribunal, okay? Because of the fact I live on Social Security, I don't have a lot of money to pay for an attorney. So I finally let it go with that. But basically, my home has been devalued 50% in 5 years. And now, the inflation of the Flint area housing was not 50 or not 100% in the last 5 years, or in the last 20 years. I used to own a duplex up in Rollingwood. And I sold that in 1978 for, I think it was $23,000, and now it's only valued at about $30,000. So, you know, the numbers are off. My whole point is the assessor, I even sit at the hearing at the state tribunal. Why am I being battled on this when the city needs more money? All I want is, it's my preference as to where to pay the money instead of in this water bill. I'd rather pay it in property taxes so I at least have some net worth, even though it's on paper. Why? That doesn't make sense.
Bill Fowler, you out there?
Hi, Chris.
I've seen from these meetings.
Chris is one person who did come to board review and ask for an increase in his valuation. The burden of proof on any valuation rests with the requester. Okay, we actually did go to hearing at the state level and asked for a minor increase over the value that we had originally proposed. The state accepted our position rather than reinstate it to the value that Chris had requested. There are approximately 60,000 parcels located within the city of Flint. Annually, we are required to set down a valuation for each of those parcels. The city is broken up into 100 residential neighborhoods. We analyze the sales that take place within each of those neighborhoods and make the necessary adjustments. Chris is correct in stating that values have dropped over the last 5 years. This year, we will experience the largest decline in property values measured by the market due to a high degree of foreclosure homes available that have saturated the market. They are the competition for the conventional market. So individuals who are trying to sell their homes are faced with competition from the banks who are trying to liquidate their homes. That's driving down values. So we have to measure that impact in the conventional market. That's your competition. Values this year, for residential overall in the city will drop 25%. That's a range of, on the low side of 19% to a high side of 28%. But overall, residential values will drop around just under 24%. Commercial is dropping around 3.5% citywide. Industrial is dropping about 7.5% citywide. So, but we are still in a declining market. Do we see any light at the end of the tunnel? Probably not for another couple of years. Notices for this year's valuations will be mailed out between the 24th and the 27th. It will advise you of time, place, and the date that the Board of Review will be meeting. Remember, the Board of Review, there are members of this community, one from each ward. So we have a 9-member board. We'll be in session for 4 days, March 12th through the 15th. Evening meeting will be on Tuesday the 15th. So now taxes are going down too, right? 25%? In most cases, yes, we're seeing a decline. While there are some cases where the gap between taxable value and the assessment still exceeds the The amount of, I think we said, so. There will be possibly some cases where you'll say, why are my taxes going up? But if you have a concern, you'll please call the office and we'll discuss your individual problem.
I don't like taxes. I'm not a collector. But the city needs the money, I care about this.
Come on, Josh.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, I'm back. I disagree with him because I own several properties in the city of Flint, and I probably pay more taxes than 90% of the people in the city of Flint. And I don't get any chance to vote. I don't get any chance to say who's mayor. I don't get any chance to vote for the Josh, who's the council, the person for the area that my houses are in and that. But yet I gotta pay all them taxes. I don't know what happened to the Boston Tea Party, but it sure didn't work.
Move into the city.
I do not live in the city. But I own more property, I bet you, than most of the people here in the city.
Which question?
My question is, why don't I? Why don't I get a chance to vote? Why don't I get a say?
You know, that's the laws we live by. You have to be a resident of the city to vote in the city. If you live in the county, you can vote in the county, but that's the way the laws are.
So I've just, when I buy a car, I get to say whether it has a radio in it or not. But when I pay my property taxes in the city of Flint, I don't get a say who's going to be mayor. I don't get a say who's going to be voted in this office. That's, you know, taxation without representation.
Thank you.
That's easy for the people to say who live in the city.
No, it isn't.
Order!
Thank you. My name is Chris Demaroni. I live in Flint, Michigan. And Mike, you know, I've been to all these meetings so far. And I want to thank you for recapping, reviewing at the start today of what some of the issues have been. It's a very positive thing, and I'm glad to hear we're going to have a meeting on the water thing. As you know, I'm against that carry down the water thing. And the one gentleman, his question was a very good one, and I think it needs to be answered. And I think what's going on is the increase in those water rates was not so much on the amount of water we use, but on the service charge. I could be mistaken on that. But what that does is when you increase the service charge, it means no matter how much you conserve, you can't cut back on your bill. And the carry down the water thing says that the city has to purchase X amount of gallons of water. They have to come to an agreement. And my concern is, and I want to know if it's your concern, that we will commit to buying millions of gallons of water per day, not being able to use that as a city, and then have to pay for that. And that, I believe, needs to be looked at, and I'm wondering what your feelings are on that.
Well, first of all, my feelings are I agree that we need to look at all the options, and I don't think we've had the kind of information that will help us make the best decision yet. But how, and the other thing I want to say is the reason I asked my staff here, because, I mean, I'll be honest, I can't answer every question in the kind of detail it deserves to be answered. So when I think one of the staff can do that, I'm going to ask them to come up. So Howard, I want you to come up for a minute and just answer this one.
To give you a brief answer, we are going to try to have a meeting here within the next 30 or 45 days and detail all of the current concerns and all the questions that have to do with water. For those that are interested, I do have a record here of all the increases that have come to Flint from Detroit going back to 1967, right up to last year. And I have a copy of exactly what the fixed rate charges are, and I'm more than happy to go over that with people. But at some point in the future, we'll have an opportunity where we can ask questions just on water and just on the Carigani. To address your question in terms of capacity, the way that contract is written is we would sign up for a certain amount of capacity, and we'd still only pay for what we use. And then we'd have to pay a fee if we used over the capacity. So we're paying for an amount that we would always have available to us, but we would only actually pay for what we use of that amount.
I'll read it.
Yeah, again, I think this deserves more attention and more detail, but we're doing the homework on it.
Yeah, could you tell us how much it's gonna cost us to demo Genesee Towers that we bought?
Good question. I think the estimates I've seen are around $3.5 million. I mean, again, this is another liability issue for the city. I mean, that's sitting there, there's folks that have been in there stealing too, so it's a major problem. I don't know the answer to that one right now in terms of how we're gonna deal with it. I don't see any developers out there. You know, we've had some developers go through it, but nobody that really thinks it can be rehabbed in a usable condition for the city. So, and I think what we've got to do is figure out, you know, and you're right, I mean, I paid that fee too as a homeowner in the city to, because of that penalty, $10 million to buy it, you know, so.
Which is more than the doctor paid for.
Absolutely. You know,
And it was demoed when he bought, it was condemned when he bought it.
and you know, we can point fingers back and forth, but right now what we gotta do is come up with a solution. I don't know the solution to that right now, but that's another one that we're looking at, I can tell you that, because, you know, that's, like, when you've heard me talk about this Michigan State University College of Human Medicine that's gonna expand its program in Flint, bring their public health program here, real positive, that's gonna be part of a downtown development effort, but the Genesee Towers is an albatross sitting there that I think impedes our total downtown development. So we've got to figure out how we're going to do it. Right now we don't have the money to do it, but I think everything I've seen, it needs to come down. I just don't know how we're going to pull it off yet.
Because of the long history of mismanagement of the people's money that you're here to somehow repair or recover from, I was wondering what type of federal monies you guys were lusting after. And while shopping for federal monies, if you guys had any intent to protect the rights of the people and the state's rights from obligations resulting from accepting that money.
Nice.
Well, if I understand the question, part of it's got to do with how we manage grants. And we are putting a group together with our finance director and with one of the folks that I brought, actually he's been on loan too from one of the nonprofits in the area. But we're looking at a plan to account for those grant dollars properly. It is critical that we go after those dollars for things like police and fire. Folks brought up the demolition needs in the community that we have no dollars to pay for. And really, those are dollars that we deserve to have come back to this community. Because we all pay taxes that go to the federal government. So I think what we have to do is be aggressive in pursuing those, especially those competitive grant dollars, bring them back into the community so that they can help us address some of these serious issues. But I think part of what you were going after was how are we going to account for it. And, you know, we're going to set up a system to do that. If I misinterpreted, tell me.
Yeah, I believe you misinterpreted it. As a customary to accepting federal monies, there will be obligations in return, a return favor, if you will, generally. Restrictions, regulations on things like people's garden sheds in their backyard, their thermostat settings, things like this. And I was wondering if, you know, like United Nations regulations, global standardization of regulations was going to creep its way in through neighborhood planning in the process of you attempting to recover financially.
You know, I don't believe so, but I mean, those are, so you're raising some issues there that I really don't have an answer to. I guess what I'd say, David maybe we could talk to this gentleman and then get some specifics
And I can clear up the question by restating it. Do you have an intent to protect people's rights and state rights while accepting federal monies?
Sure, we do.
Good answer.
Well, I hope the tension calms down a little bit tonight. I read somewhere that 40% of the water is being lost in the system. Is this water that's leaking out of the aging infrastructure from Detroit, from the processing plant, and on its way to the homes?
I think it's 30% is what we indicate right now. It's about 30%. That's why we think there needs to be an audit of that water system. Is it all leakage? I can't answer that question right now, but we'll try to get an answer to it.
Okay, you said your salary was 170 grand a year, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Does that come out of the city budget?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so have you counteracted that 170 grand deficit from our city budget?
Yeah, I cut the council wages. And
Okay, so basically you're going to turn this into a joke? You're telling me that...
not just benefit, but in all seriousness, okay? The governor sets that salary. I took this job.
Okay, this is a democracy, right?
That's right.
Okay, were you elected?
I think we all know the answer to that question.
I believe the answer is no.
You're right.
And all political power is inherent in the people. I don't think over half of the people in the city want you here. Therefore, why do you have any say over what goes on here?
Wrong.
Okay.
I have some issues, but I'm not looking here. So just, start a fight and just hop it. When I ask a question, I am looking for an honest, sincere answer. I know you don't have all the answers. I don't either. Hopefully, some of this conversation will stimulate some thought for some better ideas. Now then, one other question I wanted to ask is, what, if any, accommodations or plans have been made in regards to funding for the pipeline from Sanilac County to Genesee County, Genesee Lapeer, because I believe personally that is a major linchpin to revival of our city, because it is major structural infrastructure. I mean, people need water to live. I don't care if they are booming out west and southwest. I got 2 daughters living in the southwest too, in Arizona. I wish they were here. But the thing of it is if there's water here and there isn't there, where are they gonna live?
I think you got a good point.
So I think that has to be a major linchpin to our urban renewal.
Let me answer it this way, sir. I think that the Karagandhi project, that's what you're referring to, is a great project. I think to bring raw water in from Lake Huron, industries like food processing and other high-tech industries, that could have a positive benefit for us in the long run. The question I think we've got to answer is, for our citizens, what's the best way to get water in here? And I don't think we know all those answers yet. We are meeting with the Genesee County Drain Commissioner weekly. As said, we're going to have a public hearing on this water issue because there are some options out there. We don't know the best solution right now, but I think we want to support the Karagandhi project. We just got to figure out how we can do that. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, my name's John Brininger. I've lived up here on the corner of Avon and Delaware for over 40 years. You holler about a police department. Well, I'll tell you what happened to me three weeks ago. Last Saturday morning, I've got a little dog and he likes to have his walk every morning. All right, I locked the door, I live alone. As I locked the door, I heard something snap. We went out and took a walked around 3 different blocks and got back home and I put the key in, just lock spun round and round. So I happened to be lucky, I had my garage door key in my pocket, so I raised my garage door, and I have a telephone in my garage, and I called 911, and the dispatcher said, we'll get you, there's one over on the east side, a locksmith, so she called him, and they come out and fixed the, what happened, the spring had broke. So the locksmith fixed the spring and got in. Just as he was finishing up, here drove one of the police officers in and wanted to know if everything was okay. Now I think that was very nice. Now they can holler about a police department all they want to, but they do the best they can.
Hello again. After the ward meetings are over, because we're running out of wards, what will be the community involvement then? Will you have more public forums after that?
Hey, that's an excellent question. Because at Haskell, this came up, you know, how could citizens still be involved? And I think we've kind of identified about 4 ways that citizens can be involved. 1 is the master planning process. 2 is, you know, as we look at the city charter and the potential for a charter commission, I think there's going to be a very real way for citizens to be involved there. Jason, help me out with 3 and 4.
Oh yeah, public safety.
Right.
Public safety.
In other words, we've got Blue Badge program, we've got ceasefire, I think it's called Lifeline now. But there's ways there that we have to have citizens engage with the police as we try to implement a public safety plan for the community. And then what was the 4th one?
Identify other ways in your neighborhood or community to engage.
Yeah, so you know, there's park cleanup projects and community cleanup projects, so those have been in existence for a while, but I think those are 4 ways that we've identified that citizens can still engage.
Excellent, excellent.
My question is about water. I want to know why their water treatment plant is on Door Highway, right? Okay. The reservoir was built for a holding pond for that was, you know, for the treatment plant, wasn't it? And they said that you're telling me that because of General Motors, we had to buy water from Detroit because we didn't have the capacity to you know, do General Motors. Well, General Motors is gone.
I think for the river to continue to serve, and the other thing, in 1960, there was a projection that we'd go to 300,000 people. So folks were looking at the future.
Yeah, but you're at 100,000 people now.
Right, right.
So why do we have to purchase water at all from Detroit and do this, the treatment plant, to get the treatment plant up and running, and the reservoir, the Holloway Reservoir was a holding pond for all that water, and the capacity is you know, 100,000 people can serve the city.
Okay, I think, as I said, we're looking at different options. Certainly use of the Flint River is one of those options, but there has to be, don't hold me exactly to the figure, but around $60 million of upgrading of that water treatment plant in order to use the Flint River. So again, you got to balance these things.
Well, how much is that project from coming to Sadillac? How much is that going to cost us?
Well, that's what we're trying to analyze. But remember, that's 5 communities that are paying into that. That's 5 different communities. And then, you know, we've got the potential to continue to stay with Detroit Water. I don't know the right answer right now. What I can tell you, just personally, I've felt like the Karagandhi project for the long term for our region is the best way to go.
Well, if our infrastructure is 100 years old, how's that going to matter?
Well, again, that's why we've got to have a fund, a capital improvement fund, you know, water and sewer funds that can be, where revenue can be generated so we can reinvest in
I like that audit because I think that what it is a slush fund
for some other programs or some way to get out of the city, money out of the city. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, there's been a lot of talk at all of these meetings about public safety, and I always hear you talking about getting more police. Have you looked into anything besides more police as crime prevention? Because as long as there's poverty in the city, the crime isn't going to go anywhere, no matter how many police are on the streets.
Well, first of all, I tend to agree with you that just having more police officers won't solve crime. I've heard the police chief say this, that if we don't have the citizen engagement, we will not be able to turn the crime problem around. So I think it's multifaceted. I think we're down to 125 officers. That's not enough. Now, that's an opinion at this point. I don't really have any empirical data to back that up. I think that the engagement with the citizens is important. I think things like alternatives to incarceration are important. I think we're spending too much money to lock people up in secure confinement. But again, those are opinions of mine at this point. I think what we need, again, is a plan. We need to involve a lot of folks in developing that plan, and then we execute it. But I do think it's multifaceted.
Such as, for example, like armed neighborhood watch groups, I think would be a great addition. The reason for this being that, let's say you have a group of citizens that are open carrying arms through their neighborhood at night to make sure that no crime happens. It's less likely that crime would happen, because are you going to be trying to break into somebody's home if there's somebody right down the street carrying a gun? No. The correct answer is no.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Excuse me, if I could interrupt for just a moment. Sorry. I'm Pastor Carl Cook from Eastwood Church. I just need to ask the owner of the gray Malibu, license plate DT74U, if you could move your car for just a moment. It's double
I'll be
parked
glad to
behind
pass
another
my keys to someone to just move it so I can say what I need to say.
Oh,
or
that's you.
something. Yes, ma'am.
So we need to let somebody out.
Okay, well, I want to make sure.
Go ahead and say what you need to say.
I have some questions. This is my second meeting, and you are Mike Brown, right?
Yes.
So the governor sent you here to help this city, this community. I don't know if it's Genesee County, I don't know if it's just Flint. So I don't really know your purpose for being here, and not meaning to point, I don't know you personally or anything. Don't know the governor personally, but I know that the citizens who live here with inside the city limits and, counties and other things like that are concerned about, I hope, everything that's going on into the heart of this area. Now, I don't know a whole bunch about everything, but Flint was the area where everything came from. Everything was built from here. So all these counties and municipalities surrounding us, if we don't get the right support, I always pray. That's all I can say. Now, a couple of questions. What are the plans to ban any type of animals? The other question is, what unfair policing practices caused by the media, for example, like gang language, is going to be coming into play of this? And I bring it up because it's concerns for everyone.
Ma'am, we're trying to do them one at a time.
Oh, well, it's recorded. I got them wrote down. I can talk to someone later.
Yeah, one at a time, and then if you want to get back in line, and then you'll go with.
Oh, okay. I thought I had to rush to go move my car and do all this kind of stuff.
If you'll answer your first question, which I don't remember what.
I think that was about the pets.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can move your
I don't have a plan for pets.
Does the governor have one? Because he appointed you here, right? And then we got to do the city charter. I saw like 4-point plan or something, master plan, 1, 2, 3. I didn't write it all down.
Yeah, not that I know of. I'm not aware of that, anything to do with pets.
Okay. Number 2 was unfair policing practices.
Just do it one at a time.
Oh, one question at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, well, nice for me to kind of be able to come up here and say hello.
You can come back.
Move your car.
Okay.
Move your car, miss.
Sure.
I'm glad to hear that procedure, because it will save me some embarrassment, yes, but not really. This is, I think, my third meeting, and each time I leave a meeting and go to other community meetings, I hear things that make me think. And so I was at home thinking last night, I said, well, the next community meeting, I better go and ask the question. You have made it a point, I'll make a statement, then ask a question. You have made it a point to reach out for community involvement. This is an example of that, and I've been to others. And you have a duty to fix some stuff. Whether we agree with the legislation that's on the books right now, you're hearing it's happening. Some of us don't agree with it, but in the meantime, we have to do what we can in our city. My question tonight is this. As I read the media and watch the movements of these meetings, and I attend them, and then I see what the media let everybody else see. They haven't zeroed in on jobs for months, but we know it's a way to fix some stuff. I would like to see, and this is the question, I would like to see you and your crew, since Snyder sent you here, and since the Republicans passed the legislation of this nature, and I know last time it was a political decision because Emerson was the majority leader. And he told me, it's a political decision when you bring in a financial emergency manager, and we're in some heavy politics right now. So my question is, you willing to facilitate a town hall meeting where we ask the governor to come to Flint? Now, the reason I'm saying that is because the governor and the legislature can give you additional revenue share. Every time I come, you say you want to get in and get out. We know that the Republicans and the governor has put you into the largest city thus far. So I'm asking at this meeting that Snyder and some of his Republican folks who can fix this and help get you some revenue, I want them to come to Flint for a town hall meeting so we can help them understand that we know it's some mechanical things that they can do to get our democracy back. Help us get him here to a town hall meeting.
I'm willing to ask that, Eric.
That man will be mayor soon. And I almost forgot my question. Ah, goodness. Oh, yes. Over in our camp, we like to do research in the odd hours. We looked at some print that was available publicly. We started to do a tally on the amount of money that the banks owe on these foreclosed properties. And it is in the millions of dollars. I just wondered if the city, however it operates, intended on going after those properties and taking them from the banks in the same manner that they would a resident's home in lieu of taxes, and or if there was any intent to sue to get the money that they owe.
No intent to sue the banks on my part. I do think that, Eric, previous speaker, and you brought up two issues that relate to new revenue for the city. If we could bring more people into the city to live in the vacant housing that we have that's, rehabable, bring taxpayers in, that's one way to raise revenue without raising taxes. So I think to the extent we can come up with some ideas to do that, I think to support efforts in the community like what are called chodos, those that are rehabbing homes and getting residents to live in those homes, those are positive things. Again, we can't do it at the level we need to do, but those are things that I think can help our neighborhoods, especially those neighborhoods that have a lot of vacant houses. But the more we can entice people to live, and I think one of the issues relating to that is public safety. If people are going to bring their family in to live in this community, we've got to make it safer. And everybody deserves that. But I think that's one of the answers I'd give you in terms of the vacant housing is we do need to get folks that are going to live in the city again who are working and can pay taxes.
And are those properties going to be repossessed by the city and remarketed?
You know, we don't have the ability to do that. We just do not have the ability. I think that, again, these are where partnerships come in. We have no real estate staff. We can't really go out and market, but, you know, possibly say a partnership with the land bank, which they own a lot of the houses. Those are the kinds of discussions we're having at a very minimal level now, but I think you're raising some ideas that, you know, if we can figure out the way to do that, to market those homes. So I think the banks want folks back in those homes, you know, so they're paying mortgages. I mean, that would make sense to me, but again, we're not going to solve all these problems here tonight. That's the best way I can answer it.
Right, and a quick suggestion, one really easy way to save money, and I don't know how much, because I don't know how much you guys pay for fluoride to add into the water, but reducing the amount of toxic additives that are purchased to put into municipal tap water is something that you can do without buying anything or asking for anything.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That was a great answer. We buy our water from the city of Detroit. City of Detroit adds fluoride to the water, not the city of Flint.
And what is our water treatment plant?
Wait your turn.
Thanks again. Chris Dunn, running Flint, Michigan. Often I ask City Council, the residents of the City of Flint pay a 1% resident income tax. And all the other municipalities in Genesee County, the townships and the other cities, they do not levy an income tax. My question to council often is, what do the residents of the City of Flint get for the 1% income tax that they pay that the out-county people do not pay in their community? And I don't know if they have answer.
Well, I mean, just look at the myriad of services that the city provides. Again, maybe we're not doing it at the quality level that we should, but I mean, that's why a lot of folks made decisions to come into the city. You know, water, certainly for a long time, was one of those, because people didn't want to do well water any longer, so they moved into a municipality where water was provided. And I think parks is another one. You know, we've had a tremendous park system. We're not maintaining that at the level we need to now, but in the past, we've had a tremendous park system in this community.
Right. I agree with those, but, I mean, we pay for the water, we pay the water bill, we have a millage for parks, and other communities have parks. And it just seems like we're paying 1% and nobody can really put their finger on what we're getting for that 1%. And we have police, we have fire, Flushing Township, they have police and fire. And so I don't know if there's an easy answer or an answer for it. But.
Well, I mean, the general fund revenues are primarily police and fire. Let's face that. That's what we're down to right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I've been through quite a few of these forums, and I noticed the same thing happening at every single one. People will raise questions, and they'll be like, oh, that's a great point, or that's a great issue, and then you'll point them to somebody else. The questions that you do ask are usually vague answers. What exactly do you do for your $170,000 a year?
You know, what I can tell you, what I'm really charged to do is to focus on these finances and fix that deficit. There are other issues like public safety and infrastructure that we've made part of our plan. Didn't have to do that, but because they're such critical issues for citizens in this community, we're focusing on them. We're going to do the best job we can to improve them while I'm here, and then we're going to hand it back to the city council and the mayor.
Okay.
I'm back. Another question I had is garbage pickup. I'm a landlord and I don't live in the city of Flint, as you probably already know. But I have several properties in the city of Flint that I rehab, and when a tenant moves out, I have to go in, fix back up, get ready to rent back out. Well, I have a hard time fixing them up when the garbage trucks always go by and tag my garbage saying we can't pick this up. And I look at the property next door where the people own the house that they're living at, and they pick up their garbage. And they tell me when I went down and complained about it at the city services, they told me they don't pick up building materials. You use building materials to rehab houses.
You know, I can't answer the question why they're not picking up your particular garbage that you put out there. What I can say from communities I've lived in other parts of the state is our sanitation department picks up more garbage than any community that I've seen, especially for the, 3 million that are millage raises each year. We're spending about 1.5 beyond what that millage raises for sanitation. So I don't know how the citizens feel, but I think that's one of the services that is pretty amazing for the city of Flint.
Because I don't know if, is that contracted out? Because I see the trucks all say City of Flint on them.
It's not contracted out, no.
Okay, because I'd heard it was contracted out.
No.
Whoever the gentleman was that was here, that's lived over on this side of town, on the east side of Flint, for 40 years, however long, whatever happened in your situation, I'm sorry to hear about whatever it was. When I was on the east side personally visiting, I heard shots fired, and there were 2 brand new police trucks that immediately swooped over to do whatever they were going to do to check on the gunshot fired. In my personal experience at my own home on the north side of Flint, I had to stay in my home for over 4 hours or more while people were surrounding me and doing whatever they wanted to do, while I waited in the house for someone to come to help me. And I had to ask, does someone have the bloodshed have to be done for somebody to show up and arrive? And I don't think that's the truth. However, I know with whatever is going on here, that's my personal experience. So whatever happened to the gentleman that was here, sorry to hear that. Also, from what I just heard, it seems like there's some landlord issues where people own lots of property in Flint, and there are people that are residents that live there. I had a problem with my garbage being picked up, but there's city policy already established for that, so I won't worry about that issue. Now, the second question that I had asked, since we talked about master planning and city development and all of this, is the media puts out a lot of terms and knowledge about anything, gangs, signs, all kinds of stuff like that. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of people aren't involved with gangs that have tattoos, just like me. I have one. It's my personal relationship. That's what that means, just in case anybody was wondering. So my question is, what is the governor's, the cities, and all the municipalities' issues or concerns so that we can get to the bottom of this problem, or so-called, with gang issues in the city, if there are any?
Well, I think there are gang issues in the city. What I can say to you is that there is a task force. I think it's a combination of FBI and local police, county sheriff, and they have definitely done an investigation of gangs in the community. I think that's one of the problems we have. I don't know that it is the most serious problem, but if you add, drugs and guns and gangs and kids that don't have jobs, that's a recipe for problems. And so, I heard the gentleman just in the front row here, we need to put more money into education. I couldn't agree more.
Well, doesn't the lottery do that? Or it just doesn't do it for the city of Flint?
The lottery
Doesn't do it at the level that we need it.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Thank you.
we're down to about 15 minutes. I see we got about 3 people. There may be somebody else that comes up, but just to kind of give you the time of where we're at. Got about 15 minutes left.
Round 3. In what ways will you be utilizing your power to modify collective bargaining agreements? Which contracts are you looking at with groups?
All contracts. There's 6 contracts. We're going to look at all of them. We are going to sit down with the unions.
Which contracts?
There's 4 police contracts, a fire contract, $1,799 and $1,600.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Chris Zwell. Thank you for coming here tonight. I've seen on the news that Governor Snyder wants to put some more state police on the force. Do you think the city of Flint will see any of them police here as a presence here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I want to know why there wasn't a federal investigation done long before the situation occurred in the city.
Well, usually the federal government doesn't get involved in local municipality investigations unless it's federal money. But in this case, it's more of a financial situation where we've got, it doesn't necessarily mean people did something wrong. What we have is a structural deficit. We've had a tax base that's been declining for 25 years, and the cost of government has been going up. There's no money to pay for those services.
Funds, I'm sure.
Pardon me?
I say, there's been a misappropriation of funds.
Complete
in the
time.
city. And there's been some money going into pots.
Again, this is where having some audits done, I think, is worthwhile. Those are expensive. We're gonna pick and choose where we do those, and then we're gonna try to get some grant money to pay for them.
Okay, you can't get the federal government in to do any of that?
If there's federal money involved, I mean, the feds may come in and do some investigation.
If they're taking money out of the people, city of Flint's pockets, with taxes irregardless, what is that right there?
Thank you, Gene.
I don't know the numbers that you threw out, like $17.99 and $16.06. They may or may not be somewhere in the charter and contracts of what people are getting paid for here. Yet how many local police officers do we have exactly? You said we had 125 officers, I guess. So we had 125. How does that break down? With the city officers, with the federal officers, with all those officers, or
just
sheriff's
City of Flint.
officers?
Excuse me, those are just City of Flint officers. I think the number is 125, is that right, Chief? Yeah, 125 right now. Those are City of Flint police officers.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering that if in your position, you have the power to raise taxes. Seeing how the tax base has gone down so much, do you have the power to start a millage or something for?
Not without a vote of the people.
It has to be a vote even though you're.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, you alluded to a structural deficit, and then you talked about the audits. I'll go along the line and say from watching city government, it's more than just a structural deficit. I'm going to go out on the line and believe that it was some people decisions that could have made some things a little different. As I make that comment and lead to my question, because you were one of the people who was here prior, and now you're the same person who's back again. That tells me people can make a difference, and when you come out in front of this community, and I know you're going to be careful with it, because when we struggle with the legislation that we don't like, one of my struggles is, should the people be responsible, be automatically set to the side? Now, you came in and you set some people to the side. I could name some of the appointees you set to the side. We had, before you got here, a big problem, in my opinion, with the legal guy. And you still relying on the same legal guy, but you set some of the other ones to the side. I don't want to use this one time around to ask you to take a second look at the legal guy, because I promised that we would get to him. But the point is this: if we are in an emergency, and with the first question I asked that you say you will be willing to facilitate a town hall meeting.
I said I'd be asked. Let me be clear.
I want you to be clear.
Okay. What I thought you were asking me is if I would ask the governor if he'd come to a town hall meeting in Flint.
That's what I mean.
I will do that.
Okay, and then we'll see what he says, but I'm asking that because I know all eyes are on Flint right now in this legislation, and it's an emergency. And when I think emergency, I'm thinking two things. All of the death that can be prevented. I'm telling you, the death can be prevented, not with just patrol, but with undercover police as well. The community concentrates on patrol, I concentrate on undercover and patrol, and no jobs. So the emergency, and you've been fine. I'm talking with Mr. Croft and Mr. Miller and some others now. We can create some jobs, and you seem to have that in your priority list. But in an emergency way, as him, as it relates to legislation dealing with fixing the death rate and jobs. That's the specifics. Now, if you need a committee to get ready to do that, My question would be this. If you sincerely, in an emergency manner, believe that the Republicans and the governing them can enact legislation to help us with these structural deficits, then I want you to set up a committee to invite him in, because you work through committees. And if you're gonna seriously do it, and let us be a part of that committee to lay out the legislation that we wanna ask him to implement as he gets ready to come here, because I think he'll respond to you.
Nice.
Thanks.
I never did tell you my name if you care to know. You don't have to. It's Dion. As you can see, I have several questions, several issues. I don't know how you pick people to come join committees and all that kind of thing. I don't want to take up everyone's time just saying stuff. However, my real concern is about the north side of Flint, because it doesn't seem like anybody cares about it anymore.
Okay, if you're interested in volunteering, Maxine is in the back, you can give us your name. And like I mentioned, you seem to be concerned about public safety. And there are some groups out there that are working in the mini stations and with the other volunteer groups. Might be a good place for you. So give us your name, we'll call you.
Okay, so that's on the list out there?
Yes.
Okay.
Give it to Maxine.
Give it to Maxine.
She's at the back table. Yeah.
Just personal experience, and then another question. I'm glad that Mount Morris Township does help out Flint, because I live in that area, the north side. So I will acknowledge that. I don't know about the guidelines, but like Carpenter Road, all of Carpenter Road hasn't been paved. They only do like a portion of it. So all that whole Carpenter Road needs to be repaved. So I know that city planning or something. So all of it, not just a portion, a side, a square, a patch. All of Carpenter Road needs to be paved.
I agree with you. What I would say on that is the county controls about half of Carpenter Road and we do the other half. So we've worked with them in the past. We'll do that again to address the Carpenter Road issue.
Okay, I personally feel that police is the #1 thing Flint needs, okay? Is there any way that a millage can be put on the ballot soon to hire more police? Everybody's taxes have gone down so much, I don't think it would really hurt anybody to have to pay a little more tax. I mean, I personally pay $60,000 a year in city taxes, okay? So, I mean, I know what it's like to pay taxes, and nobody wants their taxes to go up. If we don't fix this problem, we're not gonna have to worry about paying taxes. Okay, so, as much as the taxes have gone down over the last few years, we need a millage for police only, and, make sure it gets put towards police. Is that something that you can do?
It's certainly something we can look at to put on the ballot, and we will, but I think there are some things we need to address prior to asking for a tax increase. And a lot of, part of that is just better management of the city. Some of it's going after state and federal dollars that are available for public safety. We're gonna do that, and then we'll kind of assess where we are and see if.
That'll help, I mean, I understand that, but I know that we lost so much tax base. I mean, you drive around some of these neighborhoods that are gone, I mean, I don't know if people live here drive around Civic Park School or those areas. There's nothing there, okay? And I mean, there's no taxes to get back. So we're gonna have to pay more taxes. And as much as ours has gone down, we can afford to pay $5,100 a house. Gas has gone up, people don't quit driving their cars. You just gotta suck it up and, pay what's due. So I think we need to get a millage out there as soon as we can to hire 50 police. I don't need 10, 15 police aren't gonna make a difference. We gotta have 50 police officers, maybe more. And the money, I don't know what it works out to be, but $100 a house, I think is gonna hire quite a few police officers. And they did that in Jesse Tower Village. Nobody got anything from that, and we had to pay it.
Okay, again, we'll look at it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be the same thing for the demolition. Just because of time, this will be our last three.
Okay, now, it's kind of a follow-up to that question. If I'm not mistaken, some years back, I think within 10, maybe it's within 15, but I'm pretty sure within 10, there was on the ballot a millage request specifically for police, and I would like to know how much that is, and that should be dedicated to police, if it isn't already. And I wonder how much more of the general budget, beyond that, that has already been legislated by referendum vote, are we getting besides that amount? And how many patrol officers do we have on the streets right now?
125, 100.
On the streets?
Well, no, that's total department, so you're right.
Patrol
officers
officers.
are in-house, right.
People riding around in cars and cruisers and trucks, is that what that means?
Chief, how much does the millage that we have right now that was approved by the voters?
It's $2 million.
$2 million is generated by that millage, and it is dedicated to police.
How many patrol officers do we have?
How many patrol officers, say, on the street?
Right now?
Yeah.
One less.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about right this time. I'm talking about, I think he's trying to get at.
Per shift, maybe?
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. I don't want the criminals to know.
Maybe they can talk in the back.
Let's take that in the back, Al. Okay, thanks.
All right, I'll go.
I didn't vote for the governor that's presently, and I will make that known. You can check my ballot. I probably never will vote for him unless things, I would never vote for him anyway. I want to make sure the heart of the place around here, up here, that this $2 million has been put into Flint from villages, I'm assuming from taxes from everywhere. The people, oh, it's not. Okay.
City residents.
City residents.
For that
That's
place.
Flint city residents, not people that are land, is it just about land ownership and paying taxes, or what is it about?
It's people's property that is assessed by a millage, yes.
So if I owned a $50 million house on a 5-acre piece of land in Flint, then I guess of the taxes, it go to the city. But if I live outside of that, then the villages outside the area, they put money into our area, into Flint, not just, it's all Genesee County, it's all under to government. No? Yes? Shaking and, I don't know.
Your property taxes that you pay on your property in the city of Flint go to the city of Flint, with the exception of like Mott College, Bishop Airport, there's some other villages there. If you pay property taxes outside of the city of Flint, they go outside the city of Flint.
Okay, so things that benefit the geographical, like the downtown area. I got lots of questions and just trying to get this all understood, so.
Yep, city of Flint.
City of Flint. So if I live in,
Mount Morris, your taxes go to Mount Morris.
okay. But then the water, I guess I heard about water,
Okay.
but I don't know. I guess I don't know what my real question is.
Okay, thank you. One last question.
Will you be implementing a licensing system for scrappers? We have pharmacists and unlicensed pharmacists. They're called drug dealers. When and that licensing determines who is a criminal and who is not. Why don't we have a licensed recycling program in terms of people can't return things to scrap yards unless they've already been licensed through the city?
Again, I think we're gonna look at this scrap issue. I'll have the chief work with the neighborhood groups. We know that's a major issue, and we do have licensing of scrap haulers now, I believe, right? Yeah.
So I couldn't bring in a washing machine to Spooners or anything?
For aluminum siding. For example, aluminum siding, to do aluminum
For
siding, you're
houses.
supposed to have a license, but the problem with it is you can license them in the city of Flint, and they go on the other side of Carpenter Road, and that's
Oh,
not the
yeah,
city of Flint.
I see. Well, why don't we reach an agreement with them, we're
It's a
trying
good
to
idea.
prosecute.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown, for being here tonight. Thank you all. We're going to have coffee and tea